Fun of the 7-day outline challenge. My name is Taylor and I am your instructor today. Today's concept is dealing with the concept of having one focused plot line for the entire novel. And how this relates to an outline is because the first step in an outline is taking that first idea you have for a novel and transforming it into the plot you're going to use for the entire novel. Today we are going to cover what the purpose of a plot is and why it's so important to have only one of them through the entire novel. How it is possible to have too many ideas, the harm that losing focus on your novel can cause, and we will circle back and cover why the outline is a solution to all of these potential problems. So, what is a plot? Google defines it as the main events of a play, novel, movie, or similar work devised and presented by the writer as an interrelated sequence. Basically, this boils down to the plot being the entire main focus of the entire story. So, without a plot, you don't have a story. Without a plot, you don't have a novel. That's why it's so critical to have a clear idea of what your plot is before you start writing it. And moreover, why it's so important to have the plot fully developed and mapped out before you ever write a word of your book. Now, how do we turn an idea into a plot? And why is having one idea so critical? It's critical because it keeps the story focused. You want your book to flow nice and easy and to have one focus that's easily identifiable throughout the entire plot line. You also don't want to distract the reader, and if you have one central idea for your book, you're not going to distract the reader. However, if you have a bunch of ideas that you're playing around with and trying to incorporate into your novel and not focusing on the one main event, it's going to cloud up your book and your writing, and the reader isn't going to know what's important and what they should focus on. Also, having one idea means that every action a character takes is supported. It's supported by that idea, and their actions back up the idea for the plot. So these three things work together. They keep the story focused and flowing, minimizing the distractions that could occur by throwing in too many ideas, and having one idea means that every action that a character takes is supported. Now for the idea of the possibility of having too many ideas. Can you really have too many ideas? In short, the answer is yes. It is true that ideas serve as inspiration. I mean, we get our idea for a story from something, from somewhere. It doesn't just appear in our head one day. Something inspires us to want to write that story and to develop it. And ideas can come from anywhere at any time. This is both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because creativity depends on the inspiration we derive from these ideas that we get standing in line at the grocery store and watching the person in front of us arguing with the clerk over the price of some item on their shopping list. And boom, you get an idea for a character or for a situation a current character could find themselves in your own book. But it's a curse because so many of the time these ideas pop into my head when I'm already dedicated to writing a novel. I already have an idea that I've been running with, and these new ideas are not going to fit in with my current one. I don't know if any of you remember Happy Bunny. He was very popular when I was in middle school, but I haven't seen too much of him around lately. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, he's just this really sarcastic meme that goes around, or went around, and he has a bunch of different sarcastic, insulting lines that are funny. However, the point of Happy Bunny in this presentation is what I call plot bunny. This is the concept of having these new shiny ideas popping into your head constantly. And bunnies multiply like crazy. So too do these ideas in my head. And it's almost always when I've already started a project and these ideas are not fitting in with my current project, but dangling in front of me is this new shiny object, and my attention is distracted from what I should be working on, and I try to go after this new shiny elusive object, and I don't actually end up finishing either one. Neither story gets finished because I lost my focus and I can't get it back for the original one, but the new shiny idea wasn't developed or rich enough to be a story of its own. This has happened to me more times than I count. I'm sure that many of you can relate with the theory. And so every time I picture a plot bunny, Happy Bunny is who I picture. And this is what I picture him saying, that he knows how I feel about wanting to finish my own novel that I've already started, but he doesn't care because he has all of these new little tidbits of information for me that I should go after and chase. And I call plot bunnies evil plot bunnies of doom because of how detrimental they are to a story. And really, it comes down to you cannot let yourself be distracted by these ideas. There is such a thing as too many ideas. It's happened more than I can count in my own career of writing. But I've learned to pause, to take it back to the original idea that I was running with, and to analyze if it fits in or not. Which leads me to why the outline is the solution to this problem. An outline is a map of your entire story. So from the start to the finish, you have a plan for the story before you ever write a word of it. An outline also allows you to transform your original idea, the inkling you have for a story, into a fully developed central plot that you can reference and use as a guide as you finish your outline and as you move into writing your first draft. The most important reason outlining helps writers is with this idea of plot bunnies popping up when you're writing. Well, if you're outlining first and you're creating an entire map of your story that you're not going to derive from once it's finished because you have a map so you know where your end destination should be, well, these ideas are going to pop up when you're outlining. And outlining allows you the opportunity to play around with them and to really try and match them up and see if they're going to fit anywhere in your novel and if they can be used. And then give you the opportunity, if they aren't relatable, to just junk them or put them on the back burner and move away from those distractions before you start writing the novel. If you don't use an outline and these new shiny ideas pop into your head as you're writing, it's a mess. I'm not going to lie. I have done this myself, and I think this is probably the biggest reason that I was never able to go back and finish a story once I started putting new themes and ideas into them from the plot bunnies that popped into my head. It's because you're already writing the story, and as words develop on the page, it's so difficult to go back and read them and really pinpoint where your plot is veering off course from your original idea and from where it should be. And if you're writing it and you don't have an outline and you're experimenting with new ideas, it's so difficult to edit that out later, to the point where the story is not as strong or focused or nearly as good as you want it to be. And if you're anything like me, you junk the entire story. And I don't want to see that happen for you guys. This is why the outline is so critical. You take the idea and transform it into an actual map that you can use for the entire storyline. And you can play around with ideas in this step so that when it comes to writing, you're not playing around with ideas anymore. You have a plan, and that's the plan you stick with. A good outline is really going to be your best friend. I firmly believe that, and I can tell you that I never had faith in outlining before a couple years ago. I'd never used one, but then I also never finished my novel. In 15 years, I have finished exactly one rough draft, and that is the novel that I started writing last November. So I know the harm that plot bunnies cause. I know the harm of having too many ideas, and I know the harm of not having an outline or a fully developed plan when you start writing a novel. So let's take a look and recap here what we covered today. We talked about the definition of a plot and exactly what the plot does for a story. It's the entire point of the novel. You can't have a novel without a plot line. And then we discussed the idea of ideas popping into your head like crazy when you're already writing your project and how they cause so much harm to the writing process. We discussed why having too many ideas is a problem, and we figured out how outlining can solve all of those problems. And so this leads me into the next phase, which we'll be covering in day 2 of this challenge, creating a framework with this idea. So today, I want you to just write down the idea you have for your novel. Write it down and commit to using that idea as we go forward through this challenge, because one idea is what you need in order to start an outline, and one idea is all you want as you go through the process. I'll see you guys tomorrow.